The CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee voted on Friday to pull the plug on the long-standing recommendation that all U.S. babies be vaccinated against hepatitis B on the day that they are born. This vote is the latest victory for HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign against vaccines. The birth dose of the Hep B vaccine has been recommended by the CDC since 1991, and studies show that the number of children and teens who contract the disease has plummeted 99% since its implementation. Despite decades of science backing its effectiveness and the concerned cries of health experts across the country, President Trump was quick to celebrate the vote, calling it, quote, a very good decision. Joining us now is Dr. Anahita Dua, founder and chair of Healthcare for Action. Dr. Dua, I have a 4-month-old who just got her shots earlier this week, not the Hep B shot. She got that when she was born. I asked my doctor at that appointment, will my daughter continue to have access to vaccines going forward? And she basically said she wasn't sure. What do you think this vote means for parents out there who are concerned about access to the immunizations that their kids need?
I think the big unfortunate thing is that it means that there's uncertainty and there's distrust, and that's going to be a real problem moving forward. At this point, as we've already seen, there are a number of states that are actually coalescing and saying that we're going to work together to continue to offer vaccines. I know Governor Healy from Massachusetts just made a statement yesterday saying that we are going to continue to do that. But the concern, of course, is that if there's so much distrust in the public, it's not even whether or not there is actually access, it's whether or not parents are actually going to take their kids to get the vaccine, and that's going to be the real problem moving forward.
I wanted to ask you about the panel that made this decision, right? Because this is the growing concern, and we can even talk about, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, if Trump leaves office and RFK is no longer head of the Health and Human Services Department, whether or not the trust that people have in the CDC can ever be restored. Just tell us a little bit about this panel. This is he actually got rid of the vaccine panel that was made up of scientists, and he brought in his own people who now then issued this recommendation. And it seems like people who may not be following the news day in and day out may be watching this and thinking like, well, the CDC advisory panel recommended this, so they must be credible. You don't see it that way. Do you see it that way, or how do you evaluate the people who made this decision and the long-term damage that people will have in the CDC?
Actually, at this point, really, when you look at this panel, you see just nothing but politics. There's politics everywhere. There's no question that we should be evaluating the science. In fact, this panel meets multiple times a year. But the whole point of it, to what you just said, is that the people that are on it are supposed to be people that are unbiased, looking at the science and making decisions. Even if you heard what they said yesterday as they were speaking on the panel, it was very clear that they were talking politically and saying things that were not appropriate. And that's actually a benefit, because once these people get out of office, I think that trust will be restored in the CDC, because these people will be replaced. There were some people that did say no who were part of the panel, and if you notice, those were all doctors and people who said, no, the science is not there for you to make the change in this recommendation.
The people presenting, though, I spoke to one former CDC official who told me that not one of the people who was presenting was a career scientist with experience on this. I'm curious what you make of the argument that we hear time and again from RFK Jr., his acolytes and supporters, that this is really a sort of a civil rights issue. It's about parents and their ability to make decisions that feel safe for them and their kids. What's your response to someone who thinks, okay, well, these changes are in line with that it's just going to give parents more options?
It is a civil rights issue for the children, that they should all get access to healthy life. And it is unfair for politics from their side to be interfering with the decades-long data that says that this is safe. What's happening at this point is if we don't give newborns the hepatitis B vaccine, unfortunately, about 20,000 of them, just within that first couple of months, will get hepatitis. And hepatitis, unfortunately, leads to things like liver transplant, cirrhosis, and even death. And so actually civil rights is the perfect way to describe it, but the opposite way, that actually we should be taking care of these children. And the fact that they're not allowing that is anti-civil rights, if anything. Allowing parents who are already confused, who are already unsure, to have now distrust, to not know what the next steps are, and then subjecting their children, unfortunately, to diseases that are fully preventable is really unacceptable. And again, making us go backwards to pre-civil rights era versus what's happening right now.
It's so dark. What do you worry about most, big picture, when it comes to children and the scrutiny and skepticism and pressure that is being put on parents when they're making these critical choices about when and how to vaccinate their children?
Well, that's the problem. Unfortunately, parents who already have so much to think about now have a whole nother problem, which is whether or not to do something. Everybody wants to take care of their kids, regardless of what side you are politically. And sowing this sort of distrust and confusion makes people question everything, as what you were saying about the CDC. So now if they're saying, well, why are we talking just about hepatitis? What about the DAT vaccine? What about measles? What about mumps, et cetera, et cetera? And now suddenly you have a situation where parents don't know where to turn. And that's really unacceptable. Honestly, at this point, we've already seen a rise in measles, a rise in whooping cough, and now we're going to see a rise in hepatitis.
Unbelievable. Dr. Dua, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you.
We've got